The sky over DracoWar was red with fire and smoke. Mountains that had once shone with silver and gold were now black and broken, crumbled by years of war. The wind carried ash and the smell of scorched earth. Craters pocked the land, and everywhere there were signs of battles long past. Only the brave or the foolish dared to walk this place. Irinder, a young human boy of 14, stood at the edge of one such crater. His clothes were torn, his face covered in dust, but his eyes were wide with fear and awe. He had heard the stories of dragons, the mighty creatures that had once ruled the skies, their wings so wide they could blot out the sun. But now in front of him lay the last of them, Therion. The dragon was huge. His scales, once gleaming like polished metal, were dull and cracked. Blood ran from a deep wound along his side, and smoke drifted from his nostrils with each shallow breath. His great wings were broken, tattered, and bent at strange angles. Therion's eyes, which had once held the wisdom of centuries, now looked dim and weary. Irinder's heart thumped loudly. He had never seen a dragon up close before, and he had certainly never seen one dying. Stories told of dragons as fierce and untouchable, but this was different. The great beast was fragile, and it was alone. Irinder could feel the sadness in the air, heavy and sharp like the smell of burnt wood. "Please, hang on," he whispered. His voice trembled, but he forced himself to take a step closer. Therion's head lifted slightly, enough for the boy to see the great pain in his eyes. The dragon growled softly, not in anger but in exhaustion. The sound rumbled through the ground, vibrating in Irinder's chest. Irinder remembered the warnings from the elders in his village. Dragons were dangerous. Humans were not meant to be near them. But he could not leave Therion to die. Not like this. The thought of leaving the last dragon to the silence of the wasteland made his chest ache. He clenched his fists. Courage, he told himself. Courage could make a difference. He knelt beside Therion, careful not to touch the jagged edges of his broken wings. The dragon turned his head slightly toward Irinder, as if he sensed the boy's presence. There was a strange connection in that look, a spark of recognition. Irinder could not explain it, but in that moment he felt that they were not so different. Both were alone in a harsh world. Both were fighting against impossible odds. Irinder reached out, resting his hand gently on Therion's chest. The scales were rough and warm, almost like living stone. The dragon's breathing was faint, a shallow rise and fall that could stop at any moment. Irinder pressed his palm harder, willing life into the great creature. He could not speak magic and he had no ancient power, but he could hope. And sometimes hope was enough. Around them the wasteland was silent. The wind carried the faint sounds of distant creatures, but no one came near. No other human dared enter this place and no other dragon remained. Time seemed to slow. Every second stretched like an eternity. Irinder's mind raced. He thought of the stories he had heard as a child, of humans who had tamed dragons, of heroes who had changed the world with courage alone. Could he be one of them? Could he save Therion when all seemed lost? A sudden rumble shook the ground. Irinder stumbled but did not fall. He looked up at the sky, half expecting an enemy, half hoping for a miracle. The clouds swirled strangely, as if the wind itself knew that something important was happening. Therion's chest rose slightly, then sank again. The dragon was fading, slipping away, and yet he seemed to recognize Irinder's determination. The boy's eyes filled with tears. He had never cried in front of anyone, not even his parents, but now he did. "I won't let you die," he said, his voice stronger than before. "I don't care what it takes. You will not die today." Therion's eyes blinked slowly, and for a moment they shone brighter. Not with fire, not with rage, but with something else. Trust, recognition, perhaps even hope. Irinder did not know if the dragon could understand him or if it even mattered. What mattered was that he believed. He believed that courage, even from one small human, could defy the odds. The wind blew harder, lifting ash into the air. Irinder felt the heat from the dragon's body, faint but real. His heart pounded in his chest. Somewhere deep down he knew that what he was about to do would change everything, not just for him but for the world. Therion's final battle had ended, but a new challenge had begun. One small human boy, faced with the death of a legend, was about to take a step into history. Irinder whispered again, barely louder than the wind. "Don't give up." The words seemed to hang in the air. The dragon's eyes flickered. The boy held his breath. And for the first time in a long time Therion moved, not much, just a twitch of his head, a shallow sigh, but it was enough. Enough to tell Irinder that maybe, just maybe, a single word could start a miracle. Irinder stayed beside Therion, his hand still pressed against the dragon's chest. The heat from the great beast was faint, but it pulsed with life. Every breath Therion took was weak, shallow, but it was still there. The boy's heart raced. He did not know what to do next. No one in his village had ever revived a dragon. No one had ever even spoken to one. He remembered the stories the elders had told him, stories of a time when humans and dragons had worked together, when dragons had trusted humans and humans had learned from them. But those were legends, old tales told to children. No one had seen it happen for generations. And yet, here was Therion, lying wounded and fading, looking at him as if he could understand every word. Irinder closed his eyes for a moment. He tried to feel the dragon's heartbeat through his hand. It was faint, like the whisper of wind through dead trees. And then he noticed something strange. He felt something moving beneath his palm, something like a rhythm, a vibration that seemed to answer his own heartbeat. It was small, almost too faint to notice, but it was there. The dragon was still alive. The boy's mind raced. Could it be possible? Could he, a human, connect with a dragon in this way? He tried to remember everything he had learned from the elders, every story he had ever heard. Dragons responded not to weapons or power, the stories had said, but to intent, to courage, and to honesty. Humans who approached dragons with greed or fear were never trusted. But those who approached with pure heart, sometimes miracles happened. Irinder swallowed hard. I want to help you, he whispered. I don't know how, but I will try. Therion's eyes flickered at him again, slowly, almost like a question. Did he understand? The boy did not know, but he hoped. He pressed his forehead to the dragon's massive chest, closing his eyes. He could feel the weak vibrations of Therion's heartbeat, but now he tried to match it with his own. He breathed in slowly, then out, imagining that with every breath he sent strength and courage into the dragon's body. He did not know if it would work. He did not know if it could work. But he kept going. Time passed slowly. Minutes felt like hours. The wind outside whispered through the broken mountains, carrying ash and dust, but Irinder did not move. He could hear the faint hiss of Therion's breathing, feel the faint pulse of his heart. Something inside the boy began to stir, a deep connection he could not explain. It was like he could feel the dragon's pain, his fear, and his hope, all at once. Then a noise broke the silence. A low rumble, not from Therion but from the ground itself. The earth vibrated under Irinder's knees. He opened his eyes and looked at the dragon. Therion's wings twitched slightly, the broken edges shaking as though they were testing themselves. The dragon's head lifted a little more and his eyes, still dim, seemed brighter than before. Irinder's chest tightened with hope. I think you can hear me, he said softly. I'm here. I won't let you die. He put both hands on Therion now, trying to feel the dragon's life through the rough, warm scales. He imagined courage and strength flowing from him into the dragon. He imagined the dragon rising, soaring again, alive and free. The air around them seemed to respond. A gust of wind blew through the crater, lifting ash and dust into the sky. Irinder's hair whipped across his face, but he did not move. He could feel something strange, almost like energy, moving between him and Therion. It was subtle, a gentle pull, but undeniable. The dragon was responding. Irinder took a deep breath and whispered again, louder this time. Don't give up. Please stay with me. Therion blinked slowly, the bright glint in his eyes returning just a little more. His chest rose and fell a bit more strongly, though still weak. Irinder could feel it. The dragon was trying. He was fighting. The boy smiled, though tears streamed down his cheeks. I know you can do it, he said. I know you can rise again. Just trust me. He did not know if Therion understood his words in the way humans did, but he felt something, a connection beyond language, something that went deeper than speech. Hours seemed to pass. The sun dipped low behind the jagged mountains, painting the sky in reds and golds. Irinder did not notice. He could only focus on the dragon beside him, the warmth of Therion's scales, the faint but steady beat of his heart. For the first time he felt hope. Not just a wish but real hope. A small human could do something extraordinary. And then, almost imperceptibly, Therion moved again. A small shift of his massive head, a twitch of a wing, and a hiss of breath that was stronger than before. Irinder's eyes widened. He had done it. Somehow, through courage, intent, and connection, he had reached the dragon. Somehow he had sparked a response. Irinder pressed his forehead against Therion's chest again and whispered a single word, almost a prayer. Rise. The dragon's eyes opened wider now. The faint glow in them grew brighter. The vibrations Irinder felt under his hands grew stronger. The great beast was alive, slowly, almost painfully, but alive. A shiver ran through Irinder, from his fingertips to his heart. He had done it. And in that moment, in the middle of the scorched wasteland, a bond formed that would change everything. One human boy, brave and determined, and one dying dragon, wounded and weary, had found something no one thought possible, a connection that could defy death. The wind picked up, swirling ash and dust, but it felt different now. Less empty, less hopeless. Irinder pulled back slightly, his eyes meeting Therion's. There was understanding there. Gratitude. Trust. And most importantly, hope. The boy smiled through his tears. The dragon was not dead. Not yet. And as long as he had breath, Irinder would not let him fall again. Irinder's hands rested on Therion's chest, feeling the steady thrum of life growing stronger with each passing second. The dragon's breathing was still weak, but there was a spark in his eyes now, a hint of the fire that had once filled the skies. Irinder could hardly believe it. The stories were true, courage and hope could reach a dragon in ways no weapon or magic ever could. The wind whistled through the broken mountains, and the ash swirled around them like tiny ghosts. Irinder's heart beat fast. He had never felt anything like this before. He had always known dragons were powerful, but now he understood that their strength was not just in their wings or fire, it was in their spirit. And that spirit could feel human courage. Irinder took a deep breath. He knew that hope alone might not be enough. He needed to do more. He needed to speak, to act, to give Therion a reason to fight, to rise again. He had only one chance. One word. One simple word that could carry all the meaning of courage, hope, and life itself. He knelt lower, placing his forehead against the dragon's rough scales. He could feel the vibrations of Therion's heart, slower now but strong enough to guide him. "Rise," he whispered, barely louder than the wind. He repeated it, again and again, pouring every ounce of belief and determination into that single word. "Rise. Rise. Rise." For a moment nothing happened. The world seemed to hold its breath. The ash hung motionless in the air. The wind stilled. Even the mountains seemed silent, as if waiting to see if the human boy's courage could truly move a legend. Irinder's hands shook. He pressed harder, willing life into Therion's body, willing the dragon to remember who he was, to remember the sky and the wind and the power he once held. Then slowly Therion's head lifted. The great dragon blinked his massive eyes, and for the first time in hours, he focused fully on the boy beneath him. A low rumble echoed from Therion's chest, growing louder, vibrating through the ground. It was a sound of life, of strength returning. Irinder gasped, his own chest rising and falling with excitement and relief. The ash around them began to swirl again, but now it felt alive, energized. The wind picked up, lifting Therion's broken wings slightly. Irinder's hands slid down to the dragon's massive foreleg, gripping it tightly, feeling the muscles twitch beneath the scales. Therion's eyes glowed brighter, the fire inside returning, slow but undeniable. "You're going to be okay," Irinder whispered. "I believe in you. You can rise. You must rise." His voice cracked, but the determination never wavered. He could see it now. The dragon was listening, feeling every word, every heartbeat, every ounce of courage he poured into him. Therion's wings trembled, small motions at first but then stronger. The great dragon let out a low, trembling roar that shook the rocks around them. The sound was not just a roar of anger or power, it was a roar of life, of will, of something ancient and unstoppable. Irinder's eyes filled with tears again. He had done it. Somehow, against all odds, one human boy's courage had reached the heart of a dying legend. The boy pressed his hands firmly against Therion's chest. He could feel the dragon's life surging, growing stronger with every heartbeat. The scales vibrated under his palms, and he realized something incredible. Therion's spirit was responding to him, to his hope, to his simple belief that a human could make a difference. In that moment, the boy understood that dragons were not invincible only because of their size or fire, they were invincible because they trusted those who had the courage to care. Hours passed like minutes. The sun dipped lower behind the broken mountains, painting the sky in streaks of red and gold. Irinder did not move. He did not need to. He could feel Therion's strength returning, could feel the fire in the dragon's chest growing brighter. The great beast shifted slightly, resting his head against the boy, and the two of them shared a silent connection deeper than words. Irinder's mind raced. This was more than a miracle. This was a bond, a link between human courage and dragon spirit that had never been seen in centuries. The boy realized that he had changed the world in a single moment. If one human could revive a dragon with courage and belief, then perhaps humans were not as small or powerless as the legend said. Perhaps courage could shape fate itself. "Rise," Irinder whispered again, louder this time, confident that the word carried more than sound. it carried hope, life, and belief. Therion's wings lifted fully, just slightly, enough to show that he remembered flight, remembered strength, remembered the sky. The dragon's eyes glowed, filled with intelligence, awareness, and trust. He was alive. The ground rumbled under them as if acknowledging what had happened. The wind blew harder, lifting ash and dust, carrying it across the crater. Irinder stepped back slightly, letting the dragon stretch and move. Therion raised his head high, surveying the wasteland as if measuring the world that had tried to break him. And for the first time in what seemed like an eternity, the dragon let out a roar that was full, strong, and proud. Irinder smiled through his tears. He had done it. One word, spoken with courage and belief, had reached the heart of a dying dragon. He had sparked life back into a legend. And in that moment he understood that human courage was not just small acts of bravery, it was the force that could move mountains, change fate, and even bring back life where none seemed possible. Therion's eyes met Irinder's, a silent understanding passing between them. The boy had shown the dragon that humans were not weak, that courage could defy even death itself. And in return, the dragon had shown the boy that legends could live again, that hope could be reborn, and that one single word, spoken with belief, could change everything. Therion rose slowly, his massive wings stretching and shivering with strength that had been lost for so long. The air seemed to hum around him, as if the wasteland itself recognized that the last dragon had returned. Irinder stepped back, amazed, but he did not move far. He could feel the bond still strong between him and the dragon. Every beat of Therion's heart sent warmth through the boy's hands, and he knew that the creature trusted him completely. The wind whipped around them, carrying ash and dust, but it no longer felt heavy or dangerous. It felt alive, energized. Therion lifted one foot, then the other, balancing carefully on the scorched ground. His eyes scanned the horizon, sharp and calculating, and Irinder could see the fire of the dragon's spirit fully rekindled. The wasteland, once so silent and hopeless, seemed ready for life again. Irinder's chest swelled with pride and relief. He had done it. Against all odds, he had helped a dying legend rise again. But he knew the danger was not over. The alien marauders who had hunted the dragons were still out there. The human colonies still faced threats, and the wasteland was far from safe. Therion might be strong again, but it would take more than one miracle to protect everything. "Are you ready?" Irinder asked softly, though he knew the dragon understood. Therion's head moved slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement. The boy took a deep breath and climbed onto the dragon's back. The scales were rough but warm under his hands, and he felt the steady thrum of life beneath him. This was more than a ride, it was a partnership, a bond between human and dragon that could face any challenge. With a powerful push of his wings, Therion lifted into the air. Irinder held on tightly, the wind tearing at his hair and clothes, but he felt exhilaration instead of fear. Below them, the wasteland stretched endlessly, craters and broken mountains fading beneath a haze of ash. For the first time in years, the boy felt hope for his world. The dragon's flight was strong, steady, and full of purpose. They flew over the remains of villages, charred forests, and deserted plains. Irinder could see the destruction the alien marauders had caused, and he knew that the fight was far from over. But now, with Therion alive again, they had a chance. The human spirit, combined with dragon strength, could protect what remained. He had proven that courage could awaken life itself, now it could also defend it. Therion landed near a small ridge overlooking one of the human settlements. The villagers had heard the distant roar and looked up in awe. They saw the great dragon, fully alive, carrying a boy on his back. Gasps spread through the crowd. Many did not believe it at first. Dragons had not been seen in generations, and no one had ever dared to approach one. But here he was, alive, breathing, powerful, and accompanied by a human who had saved him. Irinder slid off Therion's back and stood beside him. He felt smaller next to the dragon, but he also felt stronger. Something had shifted inside him. He had faced despair, fought against impossible odds, and helped a legend rise from death itself. That courage would carry him forward. The villagers slowly approached, cautious at first, then with awe and admiration. Whispers spread through the crowd. "He did it. A boy revived the dragon. He is brave." Therion's eyes scanned the village, then the surrounding wasteland. The alien marauders could return at any time, but now they would face a force they could not understand. A single human boy had defied fate, and now a dragon stood ready to protect the weak and the innocent. Irinder's courage had not only saved a dragon, it had changed the balance of power in their world. The boy stepped forward, his small voice carrying over the wind. "We can rebuild. We can fight. Together." Therion lowered his massive head slightly, a gesture of trust and acknowledgement. Irinder realized that this was more than a bond. It was a promise. Together, human and dragon could face any threat. Together they could bring life back to the wasteland. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, painting the sky in orange and gold, Irinder felt a deep sense of purpose. The fight ahead would be long and dangerous, but for the first time he did not feel fear. He had courage, he had Therion, and he had hope. That was enough. The villagers gathered around, some approaching slowly, some still cautious. But as they looked at Irinder and the dragon, they felt something they had not felt in years: belief. They believed in the impossible. They believed in courage. And most importantly, they believed in the boy who had dared to rise when all seemed lost. Therion let out another roar, this one full of strength and defiance. It echoed across the wasteland, shaking the broken mountains and craters. Irinder raised his hand in response, feeling the vibration of life through the dragon's chest. He knew that they had only begun. The wasteland could be restored. The humans could fight back. And one day the dragons could soar across DracoWar again, not as legends of the past, but as protectors of the future. Irinder smiled at Therion, his eyes shining with determination. "We'll do this together," he said. "No matter what comes, we'll rise." The dragon tilted his massive head as if to agree. Together they were unstoppable. One human, full of courage, and one dragon, full of life. And the world would never forget what they had done. For the first time in generations, the wasteland did not feel empty. It felt alive. Full of possibility. Full of courage. And as Irinder and Therion prepared to face the challenges ahead, one thing was clear: human determination combined with the power of a dragon could change everything. The sun rose slowly over DracoWar, painting the sky in soft gold and pink. The wasteland that had once seemed lifeless now glimmered with faint hope. Small patches of green were beginning to appear among the ash, and birds, long absent, sang from distant ridges. Irinder stood beside Therion at the edge of a cliff, feeling the wind whip past them. The dragon stretched his massive wings, testing their strength, and the boy felt a surge of pride. They had come so far. Villagers had gathered below, rebuilding what the marauders had destroyed. Walls were being repaired, homes cleared of debris, and fires lit for warmth and cooking. They watched in awe as the last dragon, fully revived, soared above them, its wings casting enormous shadows over the land. Irinder smiled. He had never thought humans and dragons could work together again, but now he saw it clearly. Courage, even from one small human, could change the fate of many. Therion landed gracefully beside Irinder. The dragon's eyes met the boy's, glowing with intelligence and something deeper: trust, gratitude, and a bond that needed no words. Irinder patted the dragon's side, feeling the steady pulse beneath his hands. "We've done it," he said quietly. "We've given them hope, given them a chance." Therion rumbled low in response, a sound that felt like agreement. The boy turned toward the village. People were coming closer now, some still cautious, others with tears in their eyes. They had seen despair for so long that hope had seemed impossible. And now, in one moment, it had returned. Irinder realized that his courage had inspired more than just a dragon. It had inspired an entire people. One of the elders approached him carefully, her eyes wide with disbelief. You revived him?" she asked. "You brought back the dragon?" Irinder nodded, his chest swelling with both pride and humility. "I didn't do it alone," he said. "Therion wanted to fight too. I just gave him a reason to rise." The elder's lips trembled in a small smile. "Then perhaps humans are not as small as we believed. Perhaps courage truly can change everything." Irinder looked at Therion, then back at the village. For years humans had felt weak, powerless, and alone. The dragons had been legends, and the world had grown darker with their absence. But now things were different. One human had acted when all seemed lost. One human had reminded the world that courage mattered, that determination mattered, and that even the smallest person could make the greatest difference. Therion lowered his head so that Irinder could climb onto his back again. Together they rose into the sky, soaring above the village. The wind rushed past the boy's face, carrying with it a sense of freedom and possibility he had never felt before. Below, the humans watched, hearts lifted by what they were seeing. Some raised their hands in wonder. Some whispered prayers of gratitude. All of them felt something they had forgotten: hope. As they flew, Irinder thought about the battles ahead. The alien marauders were still out there, and other dangers would come. But he was not afraid. He had Therion by his side, and together they were stronger than any threat. Courage was not about being fearless. It was about facing fear even when the odds seemed impossible. And now he knew that courage could awaken legends, defend the weak, and even change history. Below, the village began to thrive again. Fields were planted, homes rebuilt, and children laughed as they ran through the streets. The dragon landed in the center of the village, and its roar echoed across the mountains, not as a threat, but as a signal of protection. Irinder slid off Tharion's back and stood tall beside him. "We'll protect them," he said, speaking more to himself than anyone else. "Together we'll make sure no one ever suffers like this again." The villagers gathered closer now, their fear replaced with admiration. They had once doubted humans, thought them weak, and relied on legends instead of action. But Irinder had shown them that courage was stronger than legends. One small boy, with a single word and a fearless heart, had brought back life to a dragon and hope to a people. Tharion lowered his massive head, nudging Irinder gently as if to say, "This is just the beginning." And indeed it was. The bond between human and dragon was more than friendship. It was a symbol of what could be accomplished when courage met opportunity. Humans and dragons could work together, fight together, and protect the future together. The world would remember this day for generations. Irinder looked out across the land. The scars of war were still there, but they no longer seemed permanent. Life could return. Civilization could rise again. And the human spirit, combined with the power of dragons, would lead the way. He smiled, feeling stronger than he had ever felt before. Courage had awakened more than a dragon. It had awakened hope, resilience, and the possibility of a brighter future. As Tharion spread his wings and soared into the sky, Irinder raised his hand, waving to the villagers below. "Rise," he whispered once more, and this time the word carried across the valley, over the mountains, and into the hearts of every human who watched. "Rise," it said. "Rise with courage. Rise with hope. Rise because even the smallest person can change the world." And in that moment the wasteland felt alive. Life, courage, and hope flowed through the mountains, the villages, and the wind. Tharion's shadow passed over the land like a promise. The boy's courage had become a legacy, one that would be remembered forever. One human, one dragon, one word, together they had changed everything.